always have to do a full rebrand in order to expand and optimize the brand that represents your business. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through ways that you can optimize your brand without burning the whole thing to the ground, without starting from scratch, but really just improving what it is that you have to make sure that it is getting people to say yes more often, getting them to talk to more people about your brand, and bringing you the ROI that you're looking for. Now, as we dive into this, you're gonna hear me refer to this thing called a brand universe. And so before we dive in, I have to really define the difference between a brand and a brand universe. Because oftentimes when people fall into this misconception that I have to burn everything to the ground, I have to start from square one again, I have to get rid of all of my assets, it's because they are viewing brand solely as those 2D assets themselves, things like your logo, your messaging, your colors, your fonts, that kind of thing. But what I am introducing you to is the idea of a brand universe. This is a far more expansive way of looking at a brand that provides a lot more flexibility in your growth than that original definition of brand does. A brand universe is the neurosocial system, and this is the combination of external signals that the human or your buyer's brain is using to determine whether or not your brand is trustworthy, understandable, and worth interacting with. And every single brand can benefit from developing a brand universe. And the ones that are very successful already have. Now, when we think of a brand universe, I like to talk about this through the lens of my brand caliber standard, where there are 3 parts: strategy, direction, and execution. Most of the time when we think of the old version of brand, we're looking at just the execution and maybe the strategy, but it leaves out this very important middle section, direction, that is all about how your brand gets experienced. And this is the area that I really want you to focus on if you're wanting to expand your brand without burning it to the ground. So let's talk about what is involved in this direction phase. First things first is the shared symbolic symbols. Now, this does have some of the, the brand asset feel to it, but is a lot more intentional. These are going to be the symbols, whether it's language, whether it's actual visuals, that get repeated over and over and over again. I also like to think of these two as the Easter eggs that you plant into your brand. It's the things that people can latch onto, and when they know, they know. And if other people don't know, well, they're just not quite in the in group yet. But these are repetitive patterns that people are seeing over and over that help them recognize your brand. They have nothing to do with your logo, but it's more of something that resonates with your audience that they can latch onto and that you can leverage. A great example is from one of the businesses I partnered with, Good Judy's. They're a bagel and espresso bar out of Champaign, Illinois. And part of their brand story is based on Judy Garland. And so for their shared symbolic system, we pulled through examples and threads and themes from Wizard of Oz. Now, the people who are familiar with the queer community, because they are a queer-owned business, knew the tie and the connection to their history and could connect with the brand in that way. The people who were not members of the queer community but understood and had seen Wizard of Oz could connect with the brand and notice some of the little Easter eggs hidden throughout the brand that were references to Wizard of Oz. And the people who interacted with the brand that maybe were not Wizard of Oz fans or part of the queer community were able to look at this and see some patterns that pulled through that they could then connect to the Good Judy's brand and recall time and time again, so that when they started seeing various marketing pieces, they immediately connected it to Good Judy's. So that is an example of the symbolic language system working. So for you specifically, as you're building this out, I want you to start thinking about what symbols or storylines or language would resonate with your ideal people, and how can you start to incorporate that into your brand today. The next section I want to talk about is the experience pathway design. This is very important because a lot of small businesses are going to look at this and think, oh, buyer journey, I've done that. But this goes far beyond the traditional buyer journey steps. You are looking at every single way that a potential buyer, lead, someone even remotely interested in your brand can interact with it. Every touch point, every angle, and being very intentional about how that gets crafted. You want to create predictable experiences because that is going to reduce friction in the overall process and build a stronger emotional connection between the buyer and your brand. You don't want people to feel lost in your experience. And so as a brand, so you already have a brand yourself, but you're wanting to expand this, I want you to start thinking about what are the ways that people interact with us? How can we improve those? Is there a step that we need to add in? Maybe something that we can remove? What would make this feel the best possible way it can for our ideal people? That's how you start to improve this section. And then there's this last section in the direction category, and this one is actually my favorite. It is the brand world rituals. This is creating ways for people to interact with your brand outside of buying from you and outside of just consuming regular marketing content. And most brands that I talk to have so much room for growth in this area because it is very rarely taught about online, very rarely talked about. The brands who know how to do it and do it well. And those who don't even realize that it exists. But you want people to feel an emotional connection to your brand. You want them to think of you when the core problem that you solve arises. You want them to tell others about you. You want them involved. And you have to create ways for them to participate with you outside of buying to create that excitement, to create that engagement. Another good example is from another client that I've worked with. She's a wellness coach. We created an offer for her that was based very, very closely to a virtual retreat. We paired it nicely with a retreat experience. And as part of this, we built in rituals that people in her community could come back to over and over again to experience her before purchasing, but also could experience and enjoy even if they were already deep in her offers. Things like regular meditations that were sent out, things like tea ceremonies, things that again had nothing to do with her specific offer that she was selling per se, but had things to do with the brand overall and were connection points for people in her audience to feel like, oh, I resonate with this. I have a similar belief. I have a similar interest. Let's do this together. And it's these meaningful experiences that build that connection that drives the ROI most of us are looking for in our brands. So for your brand, if you're wanting to expand this, if you're wanting to go bigger without burning everything down, I encourage you to think about what are ways that people can interact with you and experience you outside of the purchase, outside of just regular content creation. Are there workshops that you can put together, events? Can you lead some kind of gathering? Can you bring people together with similar interests that align with your brand's values and create an opportunity for community to build there? All of these are ways that you can be expanding your brand that don't require you to burn the whole thing down. I partner with brands at all different phases. Some of them, we are burning it down. We're scrapping it. It doesn't feel right. We start again. But there are plenty of others who I have partnered with that there was these minor tweaks that created the big difference. Now, this is what I call the brand universe. Is if this is something that you are interested in exploring more of, if you're like, oh my gosh, Hunter, I would love help with this. Like, this is what I've been looking for, but I don't know how to do it myself. I want to invite you to apply to book a discovery call with me. We'll talk about what a brand universe could look like for you, what a partnership would look like, and what your next steps would be. In the meantime, keep killing it. I'll see you in the next one.